This program is made possible by a generous donation from Raceway Ford in Riverside. Raceway Ford would like to take this opportunity to thank the community and our customers for their continued support. As the premier Ford dealership in the Riverside and Inland Empire area, we are proud to say that we've served the transportation needs of Southern California residents for over 25 years with an attitude of integrity and a commitment to our customers and our community. Get the car you want at the price you want today. Raceway Ford in Riverside, your community dealership.
I'm your host, Kerry Pendergast, and I want to welcome you to another edition of California CEO Magazine's Inland Empire Nonprofit Showcase. Today's show will introduce you to two nonprofit organizations that have come together to support Riverside National Cemetery, which is the final resting place for many of our national veterans, as well as for many of our brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving our country. The Riverside National Support Committee and West Coast Sunder have worked together to fund and build 16 memorials within the cemetery and to provide a host of services to the families of veterans, ensuring that their loved ones are laid to rest with dignity and respect befitting the nation's veterans. Today's sponsor, Raceway Ford, located here in Riverside, understands the vital role nonprofit organizations play in our community, and they are honored to support programs that spotlight those organizations that have a proud history of service to the communities they serve. I'm purposely keeping the opening of today's show short in order to give our guests more time to provide us with the history of their respective organizations and to share with us the catalyst for their coming together for such a noble cause, and to provide us with some insight into what other projects are planned for the cemetery. Today it's my pleasure to welcome to the show Paul Adkins, who is the chairman of the Riverside National Cemetery Support Committee, and Bill Chamberlain, who's president of West Coast Sunder. Knowing each of you personally, I know how committed you are to the program, I know how passionate you are about the program, and I know all of the great things that you've done for the cemetery, so I personally want to thank you for that. Secondly, I know that you're both veterans, and I want to personally thank you for your service. So welcome to the show. I think the common thread that we're going to find in both of your comments today is that community members working together really can accomplish a lot of things. And in the case of the cemetery, if my memory serves me correctly, Paul, it originally, in terms of the support side of the cemetery, it was something that was originally started by Dave Goldware, I believe, who
Correct.
Has since passed away, and was really appalled with the condition of the cemetery, and because they had limited resources, they jumped in and planted trees and did some of the things that the cemetery wasn't
Correct.
really.
The cemetery opened in November 11th of 1978, and it was a constant building, expanding process, and some point along the way in the 80s, things kind of got out of hand. Wasn't grass landscape wasn't being taken care of, so David, being a veteran, being the man who he was, decided to make a change, and he did.
How did that evolve into the support committee that we see today?
The Riverside County, I guess through David, through influencing, became involved, and the support committee actually, as we know it today, was started by the Department of Veteran Services, Bill Dinsmore, and then we evolved further to become our own standalone organization. That was probably in the early to mid 90s. We incorporated as a nonprofit in 1996, received our 501c3 letter from the IRS about that same time, and we just took off from there.
Now, is the memorial detail a part of the support committee, or is that a separate entity that you simply support?
They're a standalone. They came about in I believe it was 1998. Started by a group of volunteers because at that point less than 2% of our veterans were receiving any kind of military honors. Mm-hmm. And so now they're up to about 35 teams, and all day you'll hear the gun salutes going off out there, and that's somebody, a veteran, that's being paid, given tribute to what their service was
and
about.
I know that's really incredibly important to the families.
Yes. Yeah. This is their final right, and to have the military honors for the family not only says something to the family about what their loved one was about, but for all of us that help and support that, we know that that veteran is being taken care of.
Bill, in West Coast Thunder's case, it started with a memorial ride of, I believe, of 8 riders in 1999.
Right.
And is now up to 3,500 as of last year.
Yes.
About 3,500 riders. But as was the case with the support committee, somebody had a vision to get that going.
Pat Delahunty decided one day that we should have a local ride on Memorial Day to honor our veterans. And him and 7 friends rode out to the cemetery and saw the ceremony that Paul and the support committee put on every year and said, we should make this a ride. So they went to, at the time, the owner of Harley Davidson was Jay Dabney, and he loved the idea, and they promoted it. The following year, I had about 300 riders, I believe. Right. I rode in that one. I didn't know about the first one. CHP determines from the helicopter with the length of the amount of bikes, it is actually over 6,000 motorcycles.
I also have to believe that, so you have a tremendous amount of awareness of what this is all about as it relates to the riders who participate. But I would think, just by its mere size, that the community really, it's another way to really bring to the forefront not only what you folks are doing, but where it's ultimately ending up, which is at the cemetery. And I know that there are a lot of residents in this area that have really not taken advantage of seeing what's really happened at the National Cemetery as it relates to the memorials and other things that you guys have been able to do.
People should take the time and visit Riverside National Cemetery. You're going to read articles in the papers about events happening there, Memorial Day, Veterans Day ceremonies. You may read an article in the paper where we're burying a young person who was on active duty, killed in action. But to get the feel of what this cemetery is about and the beauty that's taking place there, they need to stop by and visit. Visit the memorials. Take a walk through the grounds of the cemetery. And it's something, especially if you're a veteran, it hits home. Mm-hmm. If you are a family of a veteran, it hits home. But there's a lot of people that I'm sure know veterans. They have an uncle or an aunt that's a veteran, grandmother, grandfather. Should feel the meaning. For me personally, when I go through the gates out there, there's a different thing that happens for me. People really need to get behind, get involved, come out and see what's taking place.
As it relates to the cemetery, isn't it the second busiest cemetery in the system, or am I wrong there?
Riverside National is the busiest national cemetery
in the whole network.
In the network. Out of over 130 in national cemeteries and National Cemetery Administration, Riverside is the most active. They bury on the average of 35 veterans and spouses a day. It's gone up. It's been as high as 45 or 50 that they inter, and everyone is done with the same dignity and honor. I've got to hand it to the staff out there. They do a fantastic job.
As it relates to each of your prospective organizations, beyond kind of the history that we just talked about in terms of how things have evolved, is there any one particular thing that stands out to you, to either one of you, that you think you would want our viewers to know something about?
Well, for me, raising money to help the Cemetery Support Committee is an honor, but it's also it's necessary to help maintain the the fountains and things that just wouldn't be done that make that place so tranquil and so beautiful to visit. But in my heart, the most important thing is that we help inter and have a ceremony for indigent veterans, the homeless that don't have families that come out. Our money also goes to have a flower, a flag, and a decent burial for those homeless veterans, or veterans that have just outlived family, not necessarily homeless. But to me, that's the real important part of what we do for the cemetery.
And isn't there a particular day each month that you get together and do that?
Yes, the third Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. It's officially known as the Indigent Unclaimed Veteran Ceremony. Again, like Bill said, that these people have outlived their families, they have no families. They come into the cemetery, once they're identified as a veteran, they're not put in any pauper's graves, there's no such thing as that. If a general is buried there, the unclaimed veteran, the next space would be right next to the general. Mm-hmm. But they do come in, they don't have honors, they don't have a flag on their casket. So the third Wednesday ceremony is their day. Full military honors, a flag is folded and presented in all of their name. We average from Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange, and LA counties, average about 25 a month.
That's really
of these
an incredible
veterans.
number.
And then usually about a month and a half following that ceremony, we have a program called Day is Done, and the flowers and flags that Bill had mentioned, we buy those, the support committee does, with the funds, and each one of those indigent veterans will have a flag and a bouquet of flowers on their grave as we're standing in as their family. Mm-hmm. Maybe the only time that it ever happens, but that does happen. And one further thing about that is once a veteran is buried in a national cemetery, their name goes on a national database. So that if any extended family that might be in Maine or Florida or Texas is looking for the grandfather, and his name can come up and they can find out where he's buried at. So there's a connection with the future generations, the other family members that this provides.
This program is made possible by a generous donation from Raceway Ford in Riverside. Raceway Ford would like to take this opportunity to thank the community and our customers for their continued support. As the premier Ford dealership in the Riverside and Inland Empire area, we are proud to say that we've served the transportation needs of Southern California residents for over 25 years with an attitude of integrity and a commitment to our customers and our community. Get the car you want at the price you want today. Raceway Ford in Riverside, your community dealership.
Bill, jumping back to West Coast Thunder and the ride that's coming up, you had 3,500 riders last year. Do you guys have any kind of anticipation?
Last week's meeting, we talked about being about 50-some riders ahead of last year for pre-registration, which is a good sign. Mm-hmm. With people able to register online, it's made it a lot easier for us because we don't have such a rush that day. We weren't able to do that originally. Mm-hmm. Everyone would come in and sign up at the dealership a little bit in advance, but most of them came that day, and it was a lot of work. So we're ahead of schedule.
So the ride starts at the Harley-Davidson dealer on Indiana and Riverside.
Right.
And where does it, I know there's a stopping point and then an end point. Is that correct?
Well, the ride starts at 9/11, and we have an honor detail that goes into the cemetery. We all used to ride into the cemetery, and that was our final destination. Unfortunately, we just got too big. Sure. I mean, that many motorcycles takes over the whole cemetery. We're loud, and there are a lot of people there that want to visit their family, and shouldn't be blocked by 3,000 motorcycles. So we now move on and go out to Soboba Casino and have a concert and kind of a celebration out there as well.
In the way of follow-up, you mentioned something that kind of struck a chord with me. You mentioned you have 3,500 plus and maybe more than that that take part in the ride. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of mentioned all those people that kind of join the ride along the way that have some affinity for what's maybe taking place, but have not really stepped up and registered and paid the full price to participate. What would you like to say to maybe folks that have taken advantage at this point of being involved? Because I know involvement is important because it creates visibility, but it's missing one of the critical points, which is giving back to our veterans and
Absolutely.
doing it in a monetary way.
Well, we've discussed this from the very beginning. Originally, we felt that they didn't know. They just wanted to jump in because it was a fun motorcycle ride. I don't think everyone still to this day knows that we donate lots of money to the cemetery from this ride. I would say to those ghost riders to inform yourself. At this point, after 16 years, I think most of them do know. I have had riders, and Paul's met some also, that once they found out what the real purpose was, they decided they would pay and ride in the ride. But there are still many that just feel like it's not that important. They want to be part of it, but they don't want to support it. To them, I would say, find a way to raise $45 and ride with us. Support the heroes that we're supporting by donating our funds to the cemetery.
And if we were to just take a minute and monetize the amount of money that you've raised over the period of time that you guys have been doing the ride, how much have you raised? How much have you given to the support committee to help them with the projects that you guys are collectively involved in?
Well, to this date, we raised well over $600,000 for the cemetery. We've donated that amount already. This year, obviously, we haven't had a total. We keep some in reserve just for operation. But all of our money goes to the cemetery. It would be great if the people watching the parade would go to Paul's site, and he'll give us the URL here soon. But it's something that I think they would like to do. They watch, they bring their children out, which is great to increase the patriotism and let those kids know it's not about picnics and car sales and
Right.
going to the grocery store for the sales. But if we could have them go on the site and donate, that would be fantastic, and it would help us increase what the cemetery receives to continue their mission.
Well, then there's really two messages coming out of that. If you could pick up half of those riders that are ghost riders and they were to pay, that would go a long way in continuing your efforts at the cemetery. And then the other thing is, we were talking earlier before the show, you said you estimate there's probably 10,000 people along the route that are watching this.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of it, and really, I think probably individually internalizing a bit about what's going on. So if, like we said, and you said, if we could capture some of those folks and get them to make even a $5 donation to the Cemetery Support Committee, that could go a long way in your efforts.
It's very, very easy to do. We have a link on our website, PayPal. We have a comment box if they would like to do it in loving memory of a parent or grandparent. One thing I'd like to echo or bring in at this point is we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for what we do, and the money we raise all goes into the National Cemetery. Mm-hmm. So there's donations. Make a donation on our website on PayPal. People will hand us a check every year. Some people will hand a $5 bill every year. That money is guaranteed that it will be used inside Riverside National Cemetery. Our bylaws restrict us from doing anything else, so mm-hmm. it all goes into the cemetery grounds.
I think some people, have in their mind a vision of what a cemetery is, but really when you're talking about national cemeteries and Riverside National in particular, it's like really coming into a park-like setting with memorials and tributes that take you in another place. It's It's not like just arriving and visiting somebody's grave. It's really a shrine to those who have served and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Well, we have over 100 young people, men and women, who have made the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan and Iraq, interred there. This means something to them and their families that it's hard to put words to. That's the ultimate sacrifice. They're never coming back. But to give a space of honor in this hallowed ground, and we like to say this is a national shrine because it is. If somebody visits the wall in Washington, D.C. or Lincoln's Memorial, those are national shrines. Every national cemetery is a national shrine because we honor those who have served and have made the ultimate sacrifice.
In terms of the actual memorials that you guys have been able to build, in terms of numbers, how does that compare to other national cemeteries? Aren't you pretty much right at the top in terms of the actual memorials that have been constructed within the cemetery grounds?
Riverside is one of those that is doing that. Building memorials. There's a long-range plan that includes memorials dedicated to Vietnam and to Korea and to World War II. The policy is that memorials cannot be constructed for a specific event, say Iraq or Afghanistan, until at least 10 years after the event is finalized. So you won't see any of those things right away, but the memorials that are dedicated to a specific group of people, such as the POWMIA Memorial, long time in coming. They're state memorials, but there are no other national memorials.
Well, I'm being told that the time for our show today is coming to an end, and you both have such incredible stories to tell, not only individually but collectively, on the things that you're doing for the cemetery and certainly the passion you have for the cause. And so I'd love to create an opportunity where we could have you back again and spend a little bit more time talking about the West Coast Thunder and your program and certainly what's being done at the cemetery and maybe finding really more ways that the average ordinary citizen can become involved and take a minute out of their busy schedule to reflect on the sacrifices that so many have made for our country. So with that, I'd like to thank both of you for coming today and hope to have you back again real soon. Bill?
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Nice having you here today. As the host of today's program, I would really encourage those who are watching the program to really give some consideration to what both Bill and Paul have had to say and maybe just pull a credit card out of your wallet and help both of these organizations because there's no more worthy cause than supporting our both active duty personnel and veterans, those who served and those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. So turn loose of a few bucks and help these guys continue the great work that is going on at the cemetery. In the meantime, if you would like to obtain more information on West Coast Thunder, I would encourage you to visit their website at www.westcoastthunder.com or to give them a call at 951-785-0100. For the Riverside National Support Committee, you can visit their website at www.rncsc.org or you can call them at 909-957-3982. A donation to either or both of these great organizations is a great way of giving back to those who gave so much for our country. California CEO Magazine and today's sponsor, Raceway Ford in Riverside, encourages you to support these two great nonprofits or any of the nonprofits featured in our programs. Your generous contributions will go directly to the programs that serve our community. If you would like to join us here in the studio to tell your story or to talk about what your organization is doing within the community, visit us at californiaceo.net and complete the form on the Contact Us page, or simply give us a call at 951-697-3098 and let us help you get your story out. I'm Kerry Pendergast. Thanks again for being a part of California CEO Magazine.
This program is made possible by a generous donation from Raceway Ford in Riverside. Raceway Ford would like to take this opportunity to thank the community and our customers for their continued support. As the premier Ford dealership in the Riverside and Inland Empire area, we are proud to say that we've served the transportation needs of Southern California residents for over 25 years with an attitude of integrity and a commitment to our customers and our community. Get the car you want at the price you want today. Raceway Ford in Riverside, your community dealership.